US Treasuries, gold, BlackRock money market funds, Bitcoin, and XRP. That's not a wish list. That's not somebody's prediction video. That is the actual collateral list at Ripple's institutional prime brokerage. Today. XRP sitting on the same shelf as gold. Let that land for a second. And here's how it works, because honestly, it's a 100-year-old trick. Picture Chicago, the early days of the futures market. Orange farmers had a problem. They had fruit, not dollars. And you can't trade futures with fruit. So JPMorgan did something clever. They lent the farmers dollars against the oranges. Nobody sold a thing. Everybody got what they needed. That exact same mechanism just arrived for XRP, which means, for the first time, XRP doesn't have to be unemployed. Sitting in a wallet, doing nothing, until the day you finally sell it. Institutions can now unlock real dollars against XRP without selling a single token. And almost nobody is talking about it because they're all screaming about an $800 trillion headline that doesn't mean what they think it means. Let me show you both. Let's dig in. Real quick, from me to you, I'm not a financial advisor and this isn't financial advice. And today I'll do what I always do. Separate the documented facts from the hopeful math and tell you clearly which is which. Never risk what you can't afford to lose and always do your own research. Cool? All right, let's get into it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Crypto with BHW, where we tell it to you straight, with heart. Grab your coffee, get comfy, because there's a mechanical change happening to XRP right now that matters way more than any price prediction. Let's go. All right, let's deal with the giant number first, because it's on every thumbnail today and I want you to understand it properly. $867 trillion. That figure comes from Ondo Finance, and it represents the total size of traditional financial assets globally that could theoretically benefit from tokenization. Stocks, bonds, real estate, funds, the whole pile. So yes, the number is real, but here's what it is not. It is not money flowing into XRP. It's not even money that's been tokenized. It's the size of the ocean, not the size of the boat. Want the honest number? Real-world assets actually tokenized right now sit at somewhere around $33 billion. $33 billion against $867 trillion. Do that math and we're at roughly a rounding error of the way there. Now, if that deflates you, I want you to flip it around because you're reading it backwards. That gap isn't the bad news. That gap is the entire opportunity. And here's what makes it credible. The people forecasting this aren't hype accounts. Citigroup says 5 trillion tokenized by 2030. McKinsey says 4 trillion. ARK Invest says 11 trillion. Boston Consulting Group with Ripple says over 9 trillion. And Standard Chartered goes as far as 30 trillion by 2034. Look at that spread. They disagree on the number. Wildly. But every single one of them agrees on the direction. When Citi, McKinsey, ARK, BCG, and Standard Chartered all independently say trillions are coming on-chain, you're not looking at crypto hopium. You're looking at the consensus view of global finance. So the 800 trillion headline is the ceiling of the room. The 33 billion is where we're standing. And the trillions in between are what these firms think happens next. But a big market means nothing to you unless XRP actually gets a job inside it. So let's talk about the job XRP just got, because this one I don't think most holders have processed yet. Okay. Here's the news that I think genuinely outranks everything else this week. Ripple Prime, that's the institutional prime brokerage Ripple built after acquiring Hidden Road, has started issuing something called depositary receipts against XRP. Fancy term, simple idea. Let me break it down. An institution holds XRP. They post it with Ripple Prime as collateral. Ripple Prime gives them dollar credit against it. And they can take those dollars and go trade futures on the CME, one of the biggest derivatives markets in the world. All of that without selling a single token. Now, why is that such a big deal? Because here's the wall that used to exist. The CME does not accept XRP as margin directly. So if you were an institution sitting on XRP and you wanted to trade CME futures, you had exactly one option. Sell your XRP, convert to dollars, post the dollars, which meant losing your position and triggering a taxable event on the way out. Ripple Prime just built a door through that wall. The XRP position stays intact. The tax event never happens, and the institution gets access to a whole set of strategies it simply couldn't touch before while holding digital assets. And it goes further than XRP. Ripple Prime now accepts a genuinely serious spread of collateral: US Treasuries, fiat currencies, gold, Bitcoin, XRP, and BlackRock money market funds. Read that list one more time. That's not a crypto exchanges list. That's an institutional finance list, and XRP is on it. Oh, and this isn't a struggling side project either. Ripple Prime's revenues have reportedly tripled since the acquisition, backed by a $200 million financing facility from Neuberger. This thing is growing. Now, I threw a 100-year-old story at you in the intro, and I did it on purpose. Because once you understand why that old trick works, you'll understand why this might quietly be the most bullish structural thing that's happened to XRP all year. Let me finish that story. All right, back to Chicago. This is actually the analogy Mike Higgins from Ripple Prime used himself, and I loved it so much I had to lead with it. In the early days of the futures market, orange farmers wanted to trade, but they were rich in oranges, not dollars. And the exchange didn't want oranges, so JPMorgan stepped in and lent them dollars against the crop. The farmer keeps his oranges, he gets his dollars, he trades, everybody wins. His point was simple. The mechanism is identical. Only the asset class changed. Oranges then, XRP now. Quick one before we go deeper. Did you know the CME doesn't accept XRP as margin directly, and that's exactly the problem Ripple Prime just solved? Most people have no clue. Type yes or no in the comments. I really want to see. So let's talk about why this matters for the price mechanics. And I'm going to be careful here, because this is mechanism, not prophecy. When an institution posts XRP as collateral, that XRP is locked. It's pledged. It's not sitting on an exchange available to be dumped. It's committed for as long as that position lives. So the more institutions use XRP this way, the more supply quietly steps out of the market. And think about the behavior change too, because this is the subtle part. Before, an institution's only way to use XRP's value was to sell it, meaning every institutional need for cash created sell pressure. Now, the same need gets met by borrowing against it. The incentive flips completely. XRP stops being something you liquidate and starts being something you keep because keeping it is now more useful than selling it. That's the shift. XRP going from a passive thing in a wallet to a productive asset that does work while you hold it. That's what institutional collateral actually means. And it's not a 2027 roadmap item. Higgins says they've already issued these receipts. So who's actually building the world where all of this becomes normal? And the part other channels skip, where does XRP genuinely stand in that race right now? Let's be honest about it. There's a phrase getting thrown around, Wall Street 2.0, and it means what it sounds like, rebuilding market infrastructure so that trading, settlement, and collateral run 24/7 on-chain instead of on banking hours and old mainframes. Higgins put it in a line I really liked. The current crypto winter is not a digital asset winter. Prices are cold, the building is not. And XRP already has a real receipt in this world. Back in May, Ondo Finance, JPMorgan, Mastercard, and Ripple completed the first cross-border, cross-bank redemption of tokenized US Treasuries, and the XRP Ledger processed the asset leg in under 5 seconds. Under 5 seconds. That's not a white paper. That's JPMorgan and Mastercard in a live transaction with XRPL underneath it. Now here's where I've got to be honest with you, because other channels won't be. The DTCC, the clearinghouse whose head of digital assets, Nadine Shakar, says they process around $4 quadrillion of settlement a year, is going on-chain. And when she was asked which blockchains they're using, she named Canton, and she named Stellar. And she said a few others they're still working on. She did not say XRP, and I'm not going to pretend she did. She also said something important though. They don't believe one blockchain will rule everything, and they're going to curate a list of chains with real liquidity where clients already hold assets, so the list isn't closed. And Ripple Prime does sit inside the DTCC's industry working group, but in the room is not the same as named on the list. Anyone telling you XRP is confirmed there is guessing. And here's why I'm still optimistic. XRP doesn't need to win a single announcement to matter. It's already got institutional collateral status at a growing prime broker, a live settlement receipt with JPMorgan and Mastercard, and a regulated stablecoin ecosystem around it. That's not a lottery ticket, that's a position. So let's bring it all the way home. Honest scorecard, real signals, and what a normal person actually does with information like this. All right, let me give it to you straight, the way I'd tell a friend across the table. Here's the honest scorecard. 867 trillion coming to XRP. No, that's the size of global finance, not a destination for your bag. Tokenization growing into the trillions this decade? That's the consensus forecast of Citi, McKinsey, ARK, BCG, and Standard Chartered. Credible, though still forecasts. XRP being used as institutional collateral right now, with dollar credit issued against it. That one's real, documented, and live. DTCC confirming XRP? Not confirmed. Don't let anyone sell you that. And notice something. The real story and the hype story aren't the same story. The hype story is a giant number on a thumbnail. The real story is a quiet plumbing change that turns XRP from something you hold into something that works. One of those makes you excited for an afternoon. The other one actually changes the structure. So what do you watch? Watch collateral adoption. How many institutions start posting XRP instead of selling it? Watch whether DTCC's curated chain list grows and who's on it. Watch tokenized real-world assets climb from that 33 billion. Those are your dominoes, not thumbnails, not trillion-dollar numbers with no context. And here's the mindset I'd hold on to. Everyone's obsessed with the destination, the price, the number, the moon. But the people who do well in this space tend to be the ones who understand the machinery first. Because when you understand why XRP being on a collateral list next to gold matters, you stop panicking at red candles. You've got an anchor, and an anchor is worth more than a prediction. Zoom out one last time. A couple of years ago, people wondered whether XRP would survive a courtroom. Today, it's on an institutional collateral sheet next to US Treasuries and gold, and JPMorgan and Mastercard have settled real value on its ledger. That arc only points one direction over the long run. We're early. The machinery is being built. The pain doesn't last forever. It never does. So here's where I'll leave you, fam. Oranges and dollars. Gold and XRP. One old trick, one new asset, and a community that understands the machine instead of just the headline. Whatever these next few months bring, green or red, we walk through it together. Clear eyes, steady hands, because that's what we do here. If this one made the mechanism click for you, do me a favor. Drop your honest thoughts below. Did you know XRP was on that collateral list? I read every single comment. This has been Crypto with BHW, where we tell it straight with heart. Stay ready, stay hopeful, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.